You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All righty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Derek, and I am joined, as always, by your co-hosts, Kevin and Alex. Guys, how we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Week 3 is in the books. Plugging right along. We're kind of starting to see some trends here in the NFL this season, especially when it comes to fantasy. So hopefully that leads for a little bit more success for everybody down the pike here. But how are you guys doing?
I'm good. I didn't realize how crucial week 3 actually was until I was watching. I don't even remember what game I was watching on Sunday. And they brought up a stat, and it was like, if a team goes 2-1, their chances of making the playoffs are like astronomically better than a team that goes 1-2. So I was unaware of how crucial week 3 actually was. In the fantasy world, boys, we are off the schneid. I finally snagged a W in the home league, and it only took Christian McCaffrey straining his hamstring and then a few other breaks to go my way. And I didn't get half a century hung on me. That's always helpful. And I was the one putting up some big numbers.
You mean like a half millennium, right? Because you scored like almost half a century.
I did, but I've been the last 2 weeks the only people that have scored 500 points ever in this league on the new platform have gone up against your boy. So it was not a fun start to the season, and we finally got a W.
There you go. There you go. So, yeah, I'd rather not talk about my my roster there. The Dalvin
Got crushed by Tay Tay.
Yep.
You got
Got crushed by Tay Tay.
That Dalvin Cook coming out, news coming out there that he wasn't going to start. I was able to pivot, but my pivots were less than desirable, let's say, because one of the pivots was Damian Harris. And for any of you that followed that performance, we'll get to it in my clutch, not so much there. As Alex says, that's a little tease.
So walk us through this really quick, because one of the big, hammers on this show is grab your handcuff. But your handcuff was sitting out on the waiver wire until Sunday morning when our buddy Craig picked him up and just stashed him on his bench. He didn't even play him.
No, right. He played him, I thought.
Did he? I thought he
ended up sneaking him in there at the end.
Yeah, he stuck him in there and got a 70 spot out of him.
Yeah, I'm going to blame some of that on being in too many leagues. But moreover, it was just a case that I have some guys on my rosters that I didn't want to give up early on in the season. And by the time I got around to adding said Mr. Alexander Madison, it was too late because it was already on Craig's bench. So
I'll tell you this though, Derek, in the guillotine league that we're all in, and there's a bunch of us that are in this guillotine league because it's a 2014 league and it's insanity, or at least it was when we started. I also had Dalvin Cook. Yeah, there's not 24 now. But I also had Dalvin Cook and started scrambling Sunday morning when I started seeing the reports. And in that league, it's damn near impossible to find another running back that's going to be playing. So I went and snagged Matt Breida, only to then go back after games had kicked and realize that Matt Breida was inactive. So what are you going to do?
There's that.
That was fun. That was nice. I was like, oh, Matt Breida, he could go off. Sleeper's got him projected to get points, which is all I need. I just need points. And then I see after games kicked, the early games kicked, Matt Breida inactive. I was like, son of a. I'll let you
son of a gun. Absolutely. So getting a couple of comments here, and for everybody out there, the new changeover with some of the streaming stuff doesn't allow me to post the comments from Twitter onto the StreamYard and onto the show, something that they're working on, but I'm seeing these comments come in there and we'll acknowledge those things. Of course, guys, if you have any comments, questions, things like that, show them out there. We love engaging with everybody watching and getting your feedback, getting your your takes, things like that. Make sure you throw those comments in there and we'll get that going.
Really, it's just the streaming gods trying to help us out, telling you to go to YouTube, like, subscribe, and you can post your comments and questions via YouTube, and they pop right up.
You know what, Kevin? I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Absolutely, guys. Head on over there, click the subscribe button, hit the ring that bell button. We do this show for you live 3 times a week, and you can catch us there every single time. Guys, what were some of your other takeaways for this week?
For me, honestly, is the Green Bay Packers going in and snagging victory from the jaws of defeat against the San Francisco 49ers, because apparently 37 seconds and 0 timeouts is too much time for Aaron Rodgers, as you heard ad nauseum Sunday night and Monday morning. But holy crap, like it was a very entertaining game. I haven't seen the league come out yet and issue a fine for that hit on Devontae Adams.
Oh, how could
but
they not?
I would be very, very surprised if there is not a fine issued, because that is the prototype hit that they want to eliminate, right? And the game did a good job, right, in the telecast of explaining why the referees were in slightly different positions, and the reasoning was there, but it shows why it was a bad move to pull the referees in closer to the line of scrimmage and not leave them further back to be able to see hits like that, because that could have been a career-ending hit depending on where he got him. Like, it was right there on that chin strap, and holy cow, guys, like that could do a heck of a lot of damage.
Well, what I don't understand, and this is, again, the NFL, sometimes it gets in its own way, and then sometimes it just feigns like it cares. What I don't understand is, if you're going to have the ability for what they were calling New York to be able to review these plays, these types of plays, why wasn't New York called in? I mean, it's a prime time. It is the only NFL football game taking place at the time. Why isn't New York, in air quotes, calling the officials on site and saying, hey, we got to look at this. We need to take another look at this. And if you're going to have your referees, and Kevin, you're right, the Terry McCulley, who serves as the rules analyst for the NBC broadcast, did a great job of explaining, look, the back judge, he lets stuff go by him now. That's the mechanics that the NFL is doing this year, that they will let stuff go behind them. And so he was blocked. And I totally understand that a human, can only see so much. There are like 30 or 40 cameras at these games. And everybody, God and country, watching the broadcast, watching these cameras, saw how illegal of a hit that was. And yet there was nothing from the league to page down to that crew and say, hey, look, we've got your back. We understand. Isn't that what this whole thing is about? Like, the game is faster than it's ever been. There's more things that humans are going to miss because they're human, and that's okay. But the camera doesn't lie. And so why isn't somebody watching the cameras to show and then page down to these officials and say, hey, we need to take another look at this? Even if just for a second, let's take another look. There were some really bad officiating blunders in that Sunday night game, and it didn't end up costing Green Bay, which I thought it would. And there probably would have been more of a stink raised had Green Bay lost. And
because LaFleur and Rodgers were beside themselves for most of that game.
Yeah, there were some really bad missed calls. The most egregious missed call actually led to history, and that was in the Baltimore-Detroit game, where apparently the play clock means nothing, because that clock sat on 0 for at least 2 seconds, 2 full seconds. That play clock sat on 0 on that 4th and whatever it was that got Baltimore into position for Justin Tucker to throw a 66-yarder out there and win that game. That was a pretty incredible kick. I did not see anything that had led up to that, so all I saw was the 66-yarder. But I also haven't heard anything from the NFL, and I think the article that I read today was the Lions are still looking for an explanation as to why that egregious of a delay of game penalty was not called and assessed. So some officiating blunders, I think, highlight when you dig past the headlines of what happened. It was a bad week for NFL officials. I think they did not have their A game in several instances. But fortunately, we were treated to some really good football. I was screaming and yelling at my TV at the end of the first half of that Sunday night game, wondering why the hell Trey Lance wasn't in the game when you've got 1st and goal from the 5. Dude's a cheat code down there. And then eventually they threw him in after Green Bay burned all their timeouts and couldn't get the proper personnel on the field. So I don't know if that was Shanahan's plan all along, but I mean, everybody it had to have been like, where is Trey Lance? The kid is an automatic touchdown from that close in just because of what he can do. And so I thought San Francisco was going to blow it and not get any points, but ended up getting his first career tutty, which was fun to watch.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I very well may be on this one, but it's to my understanding that the officiating crew that does like the replays, that does the challenges, things like that, they can't necessarily page in to challenge a non-call type of thing.
That rule should probably be changed if that's what it is. I don't know. I actually don't know, Derek. Apologize for my ignorance on that, but that rule needs to be changed.
Right.
Yeah, it's certain things, right? Like they're talking, inbounds, out of bounds, fumbles. The CeeDee Lamb, or not, excuse me, not the CeeDee Lamb play, the Cedric Wilson grab along the sideline. Mm-hmm. The official called it complete. It was clearly incomplete, but the league instantly buzzed down that type of
challenged. Yeah.
Oh, yes, you're correct. That was challenged.
But it was like the Zeke one where it was called the touchdown, and then it was then it was overturned on that one. That one came from the booth and was initiated that way. But yeah, it's my understanding that the replay officials can't necessarily challenge a call on the field, such as a delay of game, such as things that should have penalty markers on that. So I agree with you that those things should be, but I don't think that that's in their scope and in their prerogative to be able to change those types of things as the rules currently sit.
And it should be. I have a feeling in the offseason, the competition committee will get together. These tapes will be submitted and say, these are the types of things that we need to try to correct, because it's not a good look for the league. And while everybody's still thinking about 66-yard field goal to win the game, and trust me, I'm happy that they did, because I did. I'm happy he did, because I'm in a 538 pool where you get a point. It's like a confidence pool. You get a bunch of points if you win. You lose a lot of points if you get the pick wrong. I would have lost a lot of points on that. It was nice that Baltimore pulled that out. But these are things that should be addressed in the offseason, because quite frankly, the rules stink. And how are you going to claim we're all about player safety and you let stuff like that fly, like the hit on Devontae Adams? It just doesn't make any sense.
No, I'm right there with you. I just think right now at the same time too, right, to everything that we've said, the officials out of position because of how they want these things to go nowadays. And if you're behind that play, right, like you see it go through things like that, but you don't see that helmet to helmet type of hit, things like that. Like you can guess that's what's happened with how Devontae's head kind of snapped back a little bit and that kind of stuff, but you didn't see the actual hit from the way it was because Devontae's body shielded the angle of view. And right now it's not like college where, the booth can initiate a targeting type of call and things like that and really start taking some control on that. So I think you're right. There's some things that may need to change there. Real quick before you chime back in, Shoot Basketball Podcast chiming in on Twitter. Fellas, how we doing? Went 8-0 in my 8 leagues, which means 8-0 this week, right? You might be right on that one. It was kind of a topsy-turvy week.
That's pretty good to go.
Yeah, good for you, man.
I'm still riding a goose egg in the league that I'm in with my high school buddies, despite having Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones on the same team. I have no idea how I'm still riding a goose egg there, but back to the point I was making. I don't fault the officiating crew itself for that particular play in the San Francisco Green Bay game, because that is the mechanics. But I think, to me at least, the thought process is if you're going to have your officials not have the play in front of them, then you better have the ability to have, the ever-seeing eye correct whatever they're going to miss because of that positioning. And if that's not the case, then why would you do that in the first place?
Right. Yeah, I think we're all kind of in
I
agreement.
will fault
there
the
that there's some
officials
things-
in the Baltimore-Detroit game. That's on them. They missed that. They blew that. And that it's just embarrassing for the league.
Yes, but I still like the crow hop, so that's where I'm going to stick with.
Fantastic finish, yeah.
The doink up and over, love it. Question coming in on Twitter real quick before we head on over to some finish up some recaps there. Fantasy coaches on Twitter asking Madison or Hubbard as a pickup this week. Who you taking?
Don't answer. We got that answer later in the show. I promise you, we got the answer later in the show.
All right. So fantasy coaches, make sure that you're staying tuned in there. We'll get you that answer later in the show. That's one of Alex's favorite phrases. As they say in the biz, that's a tease.
That's a tease. Yep.
That's a tease right there. Kevin, any final kind of thoughts on some of the recap from this week on the action?
I'm wondering if the Chiefs have finally been decoded, or if it's that Super Bowl hangover that sometimes the losing team in the Super Bowl gets and they're off to a sluggish start. I'm also wondering if Baltimore's as good as advertised, even though they beat the Chiefs, right? Like the Lions, we said, are a scrappy team, right? They're trying to bite kneecaps and they're scrapping and crawling for everything that they can get. But if you're Baltimore, that's a game that you should walk away with, 3 to 7 points, no issue. Like it should not come down to that. But the receivers for Baltimore need to catch the freaking ball, man. I don't know what the deal is with your boy Hollywood over there in Baltimore.
Another tease.
But holy smokes, man. Like it is ridiculous the number of passes that Lamar Jackson lays right into him. Like this is not Lamar Jackson being inaccurate. This is the receiving core having complete butterfingers and letting it bounce off their chest and face masks and not being able to grab the ball and secure it in. And they kind of half grab it and it falls between their arm and their chest plate there. And it goes incomplete because they couldn't make a football move. Like this is stuff that they should be covering in camp. And quite frankly, that these players need to get resolved really quick, or Baltimore is going to struggle mightily as they get into the meat of their season, starting with their game this Saturday in Denver against our Broncos.
Yep, and that'll be.
Excuse you. Put some respect on that. The 3-0 Denver Broncos.
Yes,
3-0 against teams that are 0-9 collectively.
AC chiming in saying those drops definitely did not help him at all. They certainly didn't help my my pine and shine predictions there. I'll tell you that. And we'll get to that here in just one moment. Alex, any kind of final thoughts here on the weekend action?
It was a fun week. The Denver Broncos, as we all predicted after week 3, the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders would be atop the AFC West, as we all predicted.
Yep, exactly. Although if you listen to the Friday show, Kevin and I went pretty heavily into that, saying that it wouldn't surprise us that the Broncos would be sitting 2 games ahead of the Chiefs at the end of this week. So one of those that make sure you're tuning into those shows because we'll recap those. We do have a couple of questions coming in here as well. So before we get into our pines and our shines recaps from last week, let's go ahead and hit up some of these questions. From the YouTube, we got DJ Vic chiming in. What's up, guys? Traded A-Rob for AJ Brown, full point PPR. He's 3-0, and he likes AJ better for the rest of the season. Hopefully he gets healthy soon. Thanks. What are your thoughts here? Which side of that one do you want?
At this point, AJ Brown, because I know that he might have a qualified quarterback throwing him the football at some point throughout the rest of the year.
Honestly, I think it's a 50-50 shot. These soft tissue injuries for skill position players are brutal. So there's always that chance, right? Like, yeah, he's going to work himself back, but if he rushes it and tries to push it too hard, he's going to be down even longer, much like some of the McCaffrey stuff that we saw last year. A-Rob, good Lord, Matt Nagy, you're a freaking offensive play caller at heart, man. Like, figure out a way to get the ball into your playmaker. Like, he is absolutely crippling Justin Fields by not letting him throw the damn ball. And on top of that, he's absolutely proving why Allen Robinson wanted out of town before the beginning of this season. Like, Nagy just has no freaking clue. And I'll call it now. We're 3 weeks in. I don't know that he finishes the season, but he's definitely not the head coach starting next year.
Yeah, I don't know that he finishes the season.
Yeah, that seat has got to be incredibly hot at this point. Even getting a rookie quarterback, usually they'll give you a little bit of grace, but the way that those guys looked on Sunday, like it was one of those that, did you even have a game script coming into it? Like that was absolutely astounding how poorly they executed what might have been the game script if they even had one coming into the game. So I guess
they had 47 yards of offense.
Right.
I mean, Fields had 68 yards of passing, but he also got sacked 9 times for 67 yards. So he finished the game, technically, team passing, 6 of 20 for 1 passing yard. Even when the Broncos threw in that practice squad wide receiver, they did a better performance than that.
Yeah. So I guess, Vic, what we're getting at is it's a 50-50 shot, man. I think I'd probably lead A.J. Brown just because I have a little bit more faith in that offense, although the injury does worry me slightly. And quite frankly, at heart, I'm an Allen Robinson truther a little bit, so I can only trust that they're going to find a way to get this guy relevant because he's just too good of a freaking talent to ignore.
Right. Alex, which side you want on that one?
At this point, like I know that, Brown's down, but with what is going on in Chicago, I think I would stay away from that with a 1,000-foot pole. And it sucks because I've got some Allen Robinson shares and I'm trying to figure out what I can do with them.
Yeah, I don't think that's a full unanimous haul for us with the AJ Brown. I think rest of the season you'll see him bounce back after this injury, things like that. After he takes a little bit of time, gets right, I think he'll have the better finish. The way things are certainly shaping up there. Another question coming in from YouTube. Quick question from Jason Kenobi: should I trade Evans and Claypool for Hill? Trying to buy low.
I guess I'm not opposed to getting Tyreek. I mean, by the end of the season, he's going to be a top 3 wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the Chiefs, I'm sure will work through their issues. They're just too good offensively to not figure that out. So if you're not believing in Mike Evans and the Tampa Bay offense, that's fine. The Pittsburgh offense is abysmal. And yes, Claypool saw a ton of targets this past week because Deontay Johnson was out, but Ben Roethlisberger is looking more and more like a rookie as he gets older. He's singling out targets. He's staring down targets. Like when you have your wide receiver, Claypool had 14 targets and Najee Harris had 19 targets. I mean,
yeah,
it's not fun football for Pittsburgh. So I guess, yes, because you can get away from Claypool, but I like Mike Evans a lot as well. So if they're willing to do it, I say pull the trigger. You can get a top 3 wide receiver, do it.
Yep. Alex, any differing opinion on that?
No, I'd co-sign on that. It's just, with Tyreek and really anybody on the Chiefs offense, CEH or anything, I will say to let people, to remind people, the Bucs looked like absolute garbage the first half last year, and then they figured it out. Good teams find a way to figure it out. And so I think that maybe that's what we might be seeing out of Kansas City right now. And until I'm proven otherwise as the weeks go on, that's the mindset that I'm taking with Kansas City.
Yep. I want Tyreek Hill on this one for everything that you guys just said. Plus part of it is too, as I see both Mike Evans and Chase Claypool as a little bit of boom bust kind of guys. Tyreek certainly has the ability to boom and have massive weeks, but he typically also has a higher floor than both of those guys as well. So I'm going to take the guy that's got the better built-in floor and the higher ceiling than either one of those guys. So yeah, if you can do that one, Jason, pull the trigger and don't look back. I think you'll be really happy with that one. So guys, that's going to wrap up some of the questions that we have there. Again, folks, if y'all have any questions, comments, anything like that, throw them up here. We love getting those comments, love answering those questions for you. And we'll go through that throughout the show for you. But we're going to head right now into the Pine and Shine recap for week 3. There's your Pines. And this is the way we called it. Go ahead and pick your guy and tell you if he hit or not.
All right, I'll start. I Zach Wilson because he's going up against the Denver defense, which is formidable, and proved to be such, especially in their home opener with that Denver crowd, the full throat of the Denver crowd, of which I believe Kevin was part of, and he looked every bit of a guy that you should have left on your bench. 19 of 35, 160 yards, and he got sacked 5 times, also threw 2 picks. So I will take the win on that one. I called that. Zach Wilson was a pine, and thank goodness the guy I was playing this week. Was that AC that I played this week, Derek?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Yes. Hey, AC, thanks for joining us for my gloat session over you. This is the one you picked to watch, man. Rough week for you. AC actually played Zach Wilson over Mac Jones, and that contributed to the first win of the season for the Off Constantly bunch.
Well, about time that the champ finally got off the snide there. Kevin,
I remind you that the Bucks looked horrible to start. No, I'm going.
Yeah, they have Tom Brady and you're you, so I'll take the Bucks in that situation. Thanks for playing. Kevin, who'd you got?
My pine was Debo. He went 5 of 10 for 52 yards, and it really played out how I thought it was. He kind of broke loose. He had one long reception. I think his long reception was 18 yards, I believe. And outside of that, Green Bay really did a good job of keeping him in check. Kittle got loose. Ayuk found the end zone. He got loose a little bit, but you can tell Green Bay saw what was going on with Debo and all the yards that he had been racking up the first 2 weeks of the season. And they said, And so Debo, last couple weeks, you've been used to him putting up 18 to 24 points, somewhere in that neighborhood in regular PPR leagues, kind of a measly 10 points there. So I'm calling that one a hit for a guy that had been carrying a roster the first 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Mine, technically it was a hit. I don't feel real great about that one, but when we were looking at it, we weren't
sure.
I said I'm not overly enthralled about it, but
hey, it's hard to win in this league. You take your wins when you can.
I believe technically when Derek went through this, he said even if he doesn't and Sony Michel plays, don't play Sony Michel either. So I think you should combine their stats.
So I get to take Sony's stat and average it out over 2 players, which makes, don't play either one of them. But it was one of those that I called that shot. It looked like Darrell Henderson had a shot to play, and he was trending that way. Certainly he didn't play. Sony Michel actually had a fairly decent game against what we all thought was a very good Tampa rush defense that hasn't necessarily, didn't look that stout in that game there from a rush perspective. But that's going to wrap up the Pines. Let's go ahead and we'll head on straight into the Shines. And we've got a couple more questions. So after the Shines, we'll hit up some questions there before we get to the Clutch Not So Much. So for the Shines, call out your guy and call your shot.
Oof. For all of us. I'll take mine first. I had Sterling Shepard, and I'm going to cop that out to an injury. 2 of 3 for 16 yards. He got hurt early in the game. I truly believe he was trending on the way to be a hit. And yes, you can't control injuries, but it is what it is. So Shepard did not fulfill my prophecy of being a flex shine this week. And so I will take the miss.
Alex, how about you?
Mine was Tyler Lockett, and while he caught, by the way, that was one, but you can't see me, so I'll own that. While he caught all 4 targets his way, it was only for 31 yards. Russ might have been listening to the show last week when I was going in on Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, because DK was targeted a fair amount more, and ended up throwing up a pretty good performance there of 6 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown. This happens every once in a while with the Vikings. Having watched them pretty intensely the last 5-6 years, they win games that they shouldn't, and I should have known that this was going to be one that they shouldn't have won, and they did.
I believe Derek and I called that on the Friday night show.
Yeah, we said that it was going to be a Minnesota type of game. All righty. Mine was Marquis Hollywood Brown, and this is one of those that you sit there and a lot of shows, the analyst talks about how the process was right. I missed it. And I missed it because Hollywood Brown missed the balls that were hitting him in the hands as he was in the end zone. 3 for 7, 53 yards, and a couple of drops there that Kevin already kind of mentioned earlier, where hit him in the hands. He had puts one of those away, add some more yards, add a touchdown on there, and it turns into an okay kind of day for him. But
if
got
he catches,
an overall good performance.
If he catches the 2 in the end zone, Derek, you're looking at 5 for 7 for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yep, that would have been a massive shine.
And that would have been a great shine. Like, again, we can't control this stuff, but it is what it is, right? Like, we can't control the drops, just like we can't control the injuries. So, unfortunately, we all stunk it up on our shines this week, guys. We got to do better. We got to go back to the drawing board, and we got to do better.
Although, if you look at it, we hit every one of our pines, so we've got something right on the process.
We're really good at telling you who not to play.
Right. Actually, here's how you do this now from listening to this show going forward. You don't play the guys we have in the pines, and then whoever we have slated for the shines, don't play them either.
Yeah, that's a good.
You'll get 6.
I will take my record going into week 4 here. We're doing all right.
And fade me on one, and I haven't been consistent on which one it is, but fade me on one of them.
My shine will make up for it this week, I promise.
All right, I like it, guys. We got a question coming in. Hey guys, and I'm gonna butcher this one, but is that Soki on YouTube? Hi guys, need an opinion. Devonta Smith and Jefferson for Cook. What are your thoughts here?
Who's willing to trade away Dalvin Cook? Is it Dalvin? Or I'm assuming Dalvin Cook.
I'm assuming Dalvin Cook there as well.
I don't.
I think that's somebody worried about an injury and trying to move off of him would be my guess.
And you're gonna bail on Justin Jefferson after the performance that he had sans Dalvin Cook?
I guess if you have Madison already, then you can entertain it if you're feeling confident about your your wide receiver core. But if you're giving away Jefferson and Devonta Smith for Cook just on the offshot of having, Cook play the remaining games on the schedule, Jefferson's just as good as Cook is without the injury history, honestly.
I don't know what side you're on, but I'm not ready to bail on Dalvin Cook. But look, when you get Dalvin Cook, you're going to get 14 games out of him. So, I mean, that you should know that going in. I'm not sure that I would bail on Dalvin Cook. Now, if you were the one with Devontae Smith and Justin Jefferson trying to get him, I could see it, but I wouldn't bail on Jefferson either. And I know the Eagles look bad, but that one, I don't like that deal at all. I don't really like either side.
It just depends on what the rest of the roster construct is, right? I mean, like I said, if you have the wide receiver depth to absorb losing Justin Jefferson, go for it. Like if you're sitting on Debo and Mike Williams, who you got for pretty cheap, but look like they're going to be really strong focal points of their team's offense, hell, why not? Take your stab at Cook. I mean, it could be a difference-making play when you're not really taking a loss in points from your wide receiver position. So, again, it depends. But hell, if your roster can absorb it, go ahead, go get Cook. Go get your guy.
Yep, and that's where I'm at. Is I'd rather have the running back than the wide receiver core. Or the wide receivers right there, just because I tend to lean towards the running backs in favor of that position there. So I'm going to take Cook, who, again, I think will be a top, easily finish as a top 5 back when it's all said and done. And Justin Jefferson still has a little ways to go to get back on pace and get back on track to see the performance he put up last year. So that's kind of where I'm at on that one. Any final thoughts before we head on over into the clutch and not so much?
A quick word from our Sports Me Spicy Take.
Yes, we're going to talk to the sports. So guys, if you haven't downloaded Sports Me, you need to do that. Get sportsme.com. You can hop on there. It's a wonderful app, kind of like TikTok, but all about sports conversations. You can join us on there. We post on there pretty regularly. Go back and forth, give the takes, go do all of that back and forth. Good stuff there. Anyway, hit us up on there, and you could have the chance of joining the show on one of these Sports Me Spicy Takes by doing that. And so the question that we were asking today is, who came up clutch, who was not so much for your fantasy team in week 3? And we had a couple of folks chiming in on that one.
Well, it was Justin Fields and Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson and the Fighting Matt Nagy's. Gross. That was fatal. I think negative 16 points in Scott Fishbowl from Justin Fields. I wasn't going to win anyway because the rest of my lineup was kind of meh. But man, that was terrible. Really terrible. Especially since I was super high on Fields coming into the season. Hope it gets better.
Man, I had mostly non-clutch guys in my main home league. My other leagues I did fine in, right? Won a bunch of those. My main home league that really fucked me, A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, and Devontae Smith. I literally have 3 dead receiver spots. There's no coming back from that. Oh, I also had Daniel Jones, or it didn't matter if I had Jalen Hurts. It would have been a little bit better, but I had Daniel Jones, and you fucked me too.
So, yeah,
we got some bitter fantasy players this week.
Yep.
But
there was not any joy of the clutching there, just some not so muching.
They were probably clutching the arms of their chair as they were
clutching the remote to try not to throw it at the $700 TV. Yeah,
right. And then, it'll get better, guys. But yeah, yes. I would stay away from the Fighting Nagy's here for a while until you can figure out what's going on with them. And quite frankly, it's even trickling down to Montgomery, which is unfortunate.
Yes.
So they need to figure it out because it is affecting all phases of that team. As far as F1 goes, the Bills did a good job scheming against him, right? Yeah, they knew that they had to take him out of the picture. And if he falls in the end zone, you're not nearly as frustrated with Terry McLaurin. It just didn't happen for him this week. And the A.J. Brown, A.J. Brown cost me in a couple different leagues going down with that hammy. So I feel you there.
Yep. And then to clean up that trade earlier where we weren't sure which side of the offer they were on, they would be getting Cook in that situation. So
get your boy. Why not?
Yeah, go get him.
Absolutely. I'm a fan of that one. So guys, that takes us to our own clutch and not so much. So who came up clutch and who was not so much for your fantasy team in week 3?
My clutch was a guy that we've spent a lot of time on this show talking about. And I believe my words were, don't panic, don't worry, everything will be okay. And sure enough, he finishes as RB1. All the Twitter haters, as Derek mentioned earlier, were very quiet during the Monday night game and today over this RB1 performance. None other than Zeke Elliott as my clutch this week.
Yeah, it was a pretty good clutch performance. Really, that entire Dallas offense looked pretty good. Again, home openers fired up. My clutch performance came from Mike Williams. He went 7 of 9, 7 catches on 9 targets, had 122 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then a little cherry on the top, caught a 2-point conversion for a couple extra bonus points. So nice performance there. Really aided the team.
Yep. Mine actually came from a tight end, which isn't usual for my team, but my clutch was Mark Andrews, who 5 receptions on 7 targets, 109 yards, putting up some pretty decent points for me out of the tight end position.
Only one who wanted to catch the damn ball.
Yeah, you're not kidding. It's funny. Alex is reading off that Mike Williams stat line. And I'm sitting there going, man, if Marquise Brown catches 2 of those things, that stat line looks very similar.
Very similar, yeah. Very similar.
Very, very similar. So, yeah, it was an ouchie moment there. All righty, let's go ahead and move on over into the not so muches. So, guys, who was not so much on the clutch for your team?
I'm not sure what game film the Detroit Lions were watching, preparing for the Baltimore Ravens. But as we stated Friday night, and I believe last week on the Tuesday show, the blueprint is there on how to have success from your tight end against Baltimore, having faced Darren Waller in week 1 and Travis Kelce in week 2. the Detroit Lions decided to pay attention to neither and basically just erased TJ Hawkinson from the game script. He is your best pass catcher. He is your alpha. And you guys completely faded him from the game script, and field goal or not, time delay or not, that is a key reason why it cost you the game, is because you didn't get your best playmaker the football.
Yeah, there's a little bit of envy because once again, this is the same position that I've had not so much performances from already twice now in this season, and to hear Derek have a clutch performance from a tight end is just something that would be a novel concept to anybody on my team, because my not so much was a guy I went out and got this week. And that was Jack Doyle. He had one catch on 2 targets for 10 yards. And the curse that I have at the tight end spot continues, because in order to get Jack Doyle, went ahead and dropped Zach Ertz off of the old roster. And there was some other reasons behind that. But watching him catch a touchdown there on Monday night really just stuck it to me. So the tight end struggles continue for the off constantly bunch.
Well, hell, Ertz was on the COVID list until Friday.
Exactly. That's why
Thursday, Friday, whatever it was, man. I understand the move. You don't know what he's going to be in. Did he miss too much of
and with it
the
being a Monday night
walkthroughs and
game,
everything else? Like, yeah,
it's hard to wait on a Monday night quarterback. Yeah. Unfortunately, the other tight end that I have on my roster is Cole Kmet, and the fighting Mack Nagy's are strike again.
By the way, we need to start a petition to change the Bears name into the fighting Nagy's, because that's too good to pass up.
Is at least for this season, Adam Gase?
No, he's not as bad as Adam Gase.
No, because Matt Nagy's made the playoffs.
He's trending that direction, though.
He's made the playoffs, though.
Yeah, and you don't have a whopping, guys leaving the system and leaving Adam Gase, and all of a sudden having a massive resurgence to the point where it's a statistic worth noting that a guy fresh out of the Adam Gase system is a guy worth drafting, because he's going to blow up the next season type of thing. Like
dang near bound for the Pro Bowl just by leaving the Jets.
Yes. Or the Dolphins before that, or,
right.
Pick your poison type of thing. Yeah. Matt Nagy's not on that scale anywhere close to it as much as some folks might want to put him there. But mine not so much was a running back, and that guy that I had to put in my starting running back lineup there because of the Dalvin Cook news, had to try and do some pivoting. And how often when you get to a pivot to a running back, you go, man, I would have been much better off putting Nyheim Hines in over a guy that's going to take at least first and second down type of work there. So my not so much was Damian Harris, who put all of 6 carries on the board for 14 yards, had 2 receptions on 2 targets, and managed to lose 3 yards on those two receptions there. So a not so much performance from Damien Harris there, and kind of a performance worth forgetting. But, as the Patriots say, we're on to Tampa Bay. So hopefully he'll have a bounce back, but he'll probably be doing that from my bench. So that's where we're at there. Another question coming in. Hector on YouTube: should I take Marlon Mack on waivers? That's a hard pass for me. Anybody have any different thoughts?
Not after the performance Hines turned in last week.
With the Colts rumoring of taking trade offers for Marlon Mack, if you have the extra spot and you're not dropping anybody of consequence, he may not be worth the stash. Seeing where he goes. Right, we've seen a lot of running back injuries across the NFL this season already. So I'll tell you, if you feel like you can justify the roster spot to keep him on there for 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks, and see if the Colts do trade him and where he might end up. Yeah, sure. There's nothing wrong with taking a flyer on a guy who might see some carries. I thought he'd be more involved with the Colts offense than what he has been. But obviously it's a wait and see game. So it's based off of your roster construction, but if you can absorb it, it's worth a flyer. Why not?
All righty. All right, guys, let's go ahead and head on over to the waiver wire targets for the week. And I managed to get it working this week, so we've got that going for us. Alrighty, guys. So looking at the quarterbacks here, Sam Darnold, Teddy Bridgewater, Taylor Heineke, and Daniel Jones, all of which are under a 50% rostered out there. What are your thoughts here? Any difference in the lineup to that order?
I think I'd put Heineke above Bridgewater only because Washington's going to be airing it out a bit more than Denver will. Denver's going to rest on their defense and probably really focus on their two-headed monster at running back. Bridgewater, while he's been extremely efficient, he does have games like we saw this past Sunday. Great NFL quarterback, managed the game beautifully, did a great job putting that team in position for success, but he had 0 touchdowns. Yes, 0 turnovers, but you need touchdowns in fantasy football out of your quarterback position to be successful. So Heineke has more of that gunslinger mentality. So I think overall I'd take him above Bridgewater for that reason.
Very cool. All righty. Alex, any other thoughts on that one?
Nope, I'd agree with that. I think if Darnold's available, especially going into this week where there isn't a Christian McCaffrey, I think that's going to affect the game plan a little bit. So I would think that Sam Darnold's going to have a few more opportunities to throw. Not that Christian McCaffrey isn't a great receiving back and can make a quarterback look really good, but I like Darnold there at the top, and I'll agree with Kevin too. You know, while Teddy Bridgewater wins real games, his performances aren't going to win you many fantasy games.
Fair enough. Let's go ahead and head on over to the running back room. And right there, you've got Chuba, Gainwell, Tony Jones, Peyton Barber, Giovanni Bernard, and Royce Freeman. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think the only change I would make would be switching Royce Freeman and Giovanni Bernard. Chuba, as long as McCaffrey's out, I think he's going to be a pretty solid running back too. For the Carolina Panthers, Kenneth Gainwell, we said after week 1, he is going to cause Miles Sanders some issues as the season goes on. So if you can grab him now and you're either spending very minimal fab budget or you don't have to spend any possibly, if he's a guy that's just flying under the radar in your league and you can stash him for a few weeks, I think come the back end of the season, you'll like the return on that. Peyton Barber how is Peyton Barber getting over 100 yards rushing and you pay $11 million to Kenyon Drake and you're treating him as a third down asset? Like, I just can't explain that. And the Raiders are 3-0, so it's hard to nitpick and say they're going about it the wrong way, but holy crap. Like, you almost have to roster him now just so that way no one else can take him and beat you with him.
Yeah.
Although kind of a funny side note there. The Gio Bernard on the Sunday show, Detroit Beastie, made that call that Peyton Barber was the guy, especially in DFS type of plays, and holy moly, was that right?
Yeah, it was the right call. It's hard putting Peyton Barber in your lineup, right? Like, you just look at it, you're trying to understand the situation. You're almost waiting for the okey doke from John Gruden and crew. And like, okay, Kenyon Drake, here you're going to go get it. And sure enough, man, it is now 2 weeks in. It is clear that if Josh Jacobs can't go, Peyton Barber is going to get first crack at everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say to especially this week, if you're in need of running back help, Chuba Hubbard is got to be option number 1. The Gainwell one, I think, is a long con, and I'd also say too, you know, the Eagles, they were terrible on offense, but they weren't on the field for very much of that game. I mean, they had 18 plays at halftime on offense. So
it's because they didn't want to run the damn football.
Exactly.
Right.
And then they abandoned the run altogether. What was it? Did Miles Sanders finish with 2 or 3 carries?
2 carries.
2 carries. Yeah. And Gainwell had 1. They had 3 rush attempts in the entire game.
Right. That's brutal. That's not going to win. That might be a rookie head coach, rookie play caller, getting a little antsy there on the play call. And that game got out of hand, but I mean, still, you're not going to win in the NFL with 3 rush attempts in a game. And I think that might be, there might be written on the team facility as Nick Sirianni walks in, if not by Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell, by literally everybody else on that offense, that might just have 3 words right above his desk, and that is run the ball.
Yeah, he definitely got caught up in the trying to keep up on the scoreboard and kind of losing their identity there, because when they did in the first half,
successful.
It was pretty successful, right? They dumped it off to Miles Sanders, even if you don't want to run the ball a bunch, right? Use the short passing game as an extension. They had some early success, and they were only down by 13 at halftime, and they were receiving the kickoff at the start of the third quarter. Like,
thanks to
they
Mike
had
McCarthy's
the opportunity.
awesome clock management skills, they were only
right
by 13.
Absolutely. So the Eagles had the opportunity to kind of really turn the game around for themselves in the third quarter, and it didn't work out. And next you have a pick 6, and the game gets out of hand really quick, and then all of a sudden the Cowboys kind of pile it on, and the Eagles can only settle for some garbage time points to help make it look closer than it ever really was.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, let's go ahead and head on over into the wide receivers, and we'll just kind of stop that at the top 15 there. So Myers, Callaway, Elijah Moore, Emmanuel Sanders, Zach Pascal, Tim Patrick, Brian Edwards, Terrence Marshall Jr., McCole Hardman, Jalen Reagor. And actually, we'll just stop that at the top 10. All the rankings are on the Good Old Boys website, goodoldboysff.com, if you want to head over there and take a look at that. So any thoughts here on those top 10 wide receiver waiver wire targets?
I have a lot of Jakobi Meyers across different leagues. And for this reason, like, he's still clearly the number 1 guy in New England. Yes, Kendrick Bourne had a game. He's a guy that you might want to move up that list a little bit, Derek, as I'm looking at it. But Jakobi Meyers is the guy. Honestly, I'd probably move Emmanuel Sanders to number 2. He's leading the Buffalo Bills receivers in snaps played. He's second in targets, only behind Diggs, and he's seeing an 18% target share right now. So Emmanuel Sanders, as this Bills offense keeps clicking, is still going to be a part of that, as the Bills are going to throw the ball a ton. So he's a guy who is worth putting on your roster and being able to stick in at the flex if you're having wide receiver issues or running back issues, and now you need to find a new flex play.
Very cool. Alex, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the Manny Sanders. Don't get caught up in the fact that he had, 2 touchdowns last week and expect that, but he's very clearly, established himself as part of that offense, and he's somebody that he's available in a lot of leagues. So that's a guy that you really should be targeting, because even if nothing else, don't let Emmanuel Sanders beat you.
Right. I think you're probably right there. We'll have to do some change in there. Tight ends, well, just a real quick hit on this one. Hooper, Ingram, Gerald Everett, Dawson Knox, Freiermuth, Conklin, Tommy Tremble. Any thoughts here?
Which one of these guys will end up on my roster next week?
I think these guys are all still streaming options, right? Like the Panthers moving Dan Arnold in the trade where they got CJ Henderson leads to more production from Tommy Tremble, so that's a good thing. Tyler Conklin's flashed for Minnesota. Pat Freiermuth got his first touchdown of his career. I mean, it was like 2 targets, 1 catch for 2 yards and a touchdown. So I don't know that you can bank on that. Honestly, Gerald Everett's still the guy that I'd go to. Just being in that Seattle offense, their defense is not very good. They're going to be throwing the ball. So Everett for me is probably still first on that list. I'd probably go Evan Ingram 2, just because of Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard both going down. Then Hooper 3, and kind of go on down the list that way. So I would adjust the tight end rankings slightly, but in reality, guys, these are all streaming options. They're not guys that you're comfortable putting in your starting lineup every single week.
Cosign.
All righty. So you can check those waiver wire rankings out on our website, goodoldboysff.com. Those are up there, and very good chance we'll be making some edits here real quick for y'all as we head into waiver wire night here. But before we head over into the Thursday night breakdown, which is where we're heading next, we have another question coming in from YouTube. Hector over there is, should we stash Bateman or Curtis Samuel if dropping Laviska?
Yeah, I totally sympathize with the dropping Laviska thought process. This has been that Jacksonville offense, and we'll talk about it when we get into this Thursday night game here, because since they're playing in it. But oh boy, I mean, if you're looking at moving off of Laviska at this point, I think either of those two options might be better for you. I'm ready to be done with him myself.
I'm going to tell you Curtis Samuel because I really like what Curtis Samuel did in Carolina. Ron Rivera obviously really liked what Curtis Samuel did. That's why they brought him in. They need another receiver to help take some pressure off of Terry McLaurin. Curtis Samuel will be able to provide that. Rashard Bateman, I like the talent. I like what the Ravens were saying about him, but we haven't seen him play an NFL snap. And that is not necessarily worth a stash and just hope and see in a redraft league. I'd rather take Samuel where I know there's at least a solid floor there once he gets back. And quite frankly, you probably have another week or so after Bateman gets back, because I don't anticipate him coming into the fray and going for 100 yards and a touchdown in his first performance. He's going to get worked into live NFL action.
Although if he can actually catch the football, he might get, some more looks his way.
Maybe, but again, the advice we would have on a rookie coming off of an injury that hasn't played a snap yet would be
in a run-heavy offense also.
Right, where it's, would you start him? No, there's not a chance in any situation. Well, I'd say that there's always a situation you could present where, yes, Rashard Bateman would be the guy to play in that type of deal.
But to stash?
Correct. But at the same time too, right? I want to see what he does on that. So even when he comes back, I'm looking probably 3 games in before I'm looking to probably even try and play him. And he's going to be out on the waiver wire about that long, unless he comes in and just absolutely pops and does something big, a la Hollywood Brown in his very first game as a Baltimore Raven, where he went ham that game and then disappeared over the back half of the season. But
yeah, Bateman's ceiling is probably higher. So Correct. If you're looking for a big boom play and that's your argument, then I understand the Bateman play. If you're looking for some depth and some reliability at wide receiver as bye weeks hit and kind of the natural attrition of the NFL takes place, I would tell you Curtis Samuel's my go-to target. So right. Again, it depends on how you feel about it, but right. I can see it either way.
Well, and Dwami Brown has been fairly mixed into that Washington offense so far on that one. And again, it's one of those that while he's been promising and good, Curtis Samuel's another level on top of that right now. And I see them finding ways to get the ball in his hands and designing plays to get the ball in his hands far more than what I think the Ravens are going to do, especially early on there. So I like the Curtis Samuel side of it. All righty. Let's go ahead and head on over into the Thursday night game. And you've got the Jaguars going to the Bengals. Bengals are favored by 7.5. The over-under on this one's 46 points. What are your thoughts here?
I will take the Bengals and the 7.5. I think we're going to see kind of a repeat of what we saw last Thursday night, where a team is just overmatched and overpowered, and I think the Bengals are much better than the Jaguars right now. But I will take under, which I thought last week I thought we'd see some points. I could see another 24-3 or even a 21-10 game. So I will take the under on the points, but give me the Bengals minus 7.5. Urban going home and getting smoked of Ohio there. You hate to see it. Actually, you love to see it.
I'm going to take the opposite side of this. I think the Jaguars cover and we hit the over. There's going to be some garbage time points in this game. I don't trust the Bengals defense to be able to really do to Trevor Lawrence what, the likes of the Broncos defense has been able to do. And remember that Houston gave up a ton of points to him there in week 1, too. So it's possible for Jacksonville to score some points. I think they find a way to do that in this Thursday night game. The Bengals win, but the Jags cover, and I'm going to take the over.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll split the difference between both of you then. Because this is one of those that it just has the feeling to me that you're going to see this thing end up where the Bengals are going to score right there. That 23 to 26 is kind of where I see that range going. The Jaguars I see being in that 14 to 18 type of point range to it. So I'm going to call it where the Jags cover, but I'm seeing the under happen on this one. So that's where I'll go. I'll take the Jags to cover, and I'm taking the under on that. So we've got kind of a range there on this one as far as that goes. Any other thoughts on the game? Any players that you're not looking to necessarily start if you've got them? Players that you think are going to smash in this one?
I think Jamar Chase is going to smash. And keep an eye on the T. Higgins injury to see if he's going to be that option. And if you're not sure about it, and you can pivot off of T. Higgins, I know 2 weeks in a row is tough at times, but don't feel afraid to pivot off of T. Higgins for this week, even though the matchup looks great. Coming back from an injury is always hit or miss when these NFL players are coming in. But other than that, Joe Mixon should eat. Jacksonville, DJ Chark started to see some action, right? So if you need a flex play, DJ Chark's probably not a bad flex play against a Bengals defense that's been known to give up a big play or two throughout the course of the game. So nothing crazy. I'm not buying Laviska Shenault, so I'm going to pass on that one. James Robinson should have a decent game here, guys, especially with Jacksonville being on the road. They should want to establish the run and try and protect Trevor Lawrence a bit. But if the Bengals are able to jump out on top of them, they will abandon the run pretty quickly. And then it's going to be, can Trevor Lawrence move the ball without throwing interceptions?
Yeah, that's the James Robinson is definitely a play that I'm going to have to really, really heavily weigh, because if I think this game goes away, that I think it will, or I should say, if this game goes the way that I think it will, that James Robinson's usage isn't going to be very good. And I've got some James Robinson shares, so that's one that I'm going to have to heavily weigh as I set rosters on Thursday. Other than that, there's nobody. I don't have a lot of Cincy guys, and Robinson's really the only Jacksonville cat.
Alex, I do think this one's going to stay in a pretty neutral game script for most of it, because you'll probably see this game be within I see it being in about a one possession type of deal there. So I think you'll be able to bank on a neutral type of game script. The question is does Urban and Darren Bevel actually decide to play and get the ball into James Robinson's hands and try and take some pressure off that rookie quarterback, which very much remains to be seen. So I do understand that one, but I think Joe Mixon is going to blow up and have an amazing game. I almost put him as my pine or as my shine on that one, but I thought that one was a little too easy of a call there. So I pivoted later on there. So, and that's where we're going to head now, is into the pine and the shine for week 4. So guys, who are you pining this week?
So for me, I'm going to stay away from Juju Smith-Schuster from the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. He has been kind of the ghost of that team here at the moment. When Deontay Johnson's available, all the targets are going to Deontay. We saw last week with Deontay out, everything went to Chase Claypool. So for whatever reason, Juju's the forgotten guy. They're going into Green Bay on a road game. Green Bay's pass defense is pretty stinking good, as we saw last week. So I'm going to tell you to pine Juju this week.
So this might be the first time that I've done this, and it I mean, it still counts because in most leagues you're going to have this. But I'm going to tell you to pine a specific defense and special teams and move on to a different one. Guys, the Washington football team was so good on defense last year, and I know a lot of people probably snapped them up in the draft. You're forced to pick a defense and special teams. They're terrible right now, and they just got eviscerated on Sunday against Josh Allen and the Bills. So I'm telling you right now, move away from the Washington defense and special teams. Find a different option. You're going to be a little bit happier. So don't play the Washington defense and special teams. Go out and find another one. They're bad.
Yeah, that's kind of been one of the big shockers and surprisers there is the underperformance of Washington football team. Right there with you, Alex. My pine is a guy that actually had, first decent week for fantasy this past week, but I see him not being able to continue that in week 4. Saquon Barkley, if you got him, pine him, move on, pivot, look somewhere else. Right now, the New Orleans Saints is 26th in fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs, only averaging about 10 points as a whole to the running back position of the opposing team there. And again, one of those that I don't see Saquon being able to do enough on the ground. Like, he still isn't looking very explosive on there, still isn't running behind the line. Doesn't look great on that one. And I don't know that he's going to get enough work in the passing game in this one for him to have a top 12 type of performance type of thing again. So I'm pining Saquon Barkley and looking for other options there. Let's go ahead and head on over into the shines. And guys, who do you have as your shine of the week?
My man is going to make an appearance again to this list. We had him in week 1, and it was an absolute standout performance. We're bringing it back. We're going to do the same thing. Corey Davis is a shine this week, going up against a Tennessee Titans team that their secondary is just not very good, guys. Like, it's just not. Zach Wilson is going to have a much easier time moving the football against Tennessee than what he's had the last couple weeks against Denver and New England, respectively. So Corey Davis is on my shine list this week.
Revenge game.
I'm going to give you my shine for this week, but then I'm also going to have an honorable mention, Derek, after you go. So my shine is Chuba Hubbard for the the fantasy coaches that were asking. Chuba Hubbard, I mean, the kid put up 11 carries. He had 52 yards on that in a game that was, pretty well in control for Carolina after McCaffrey got hurt. I think he's going to be a focal point in this offense for Carolina this week. So I think, we've kind of said it a couple times. The Cowboys, it's a good defense, but I think as we've seen, that if you get one-dimensional against the Cowboys, like we saw with the Eagles last week, you're not going to have a very good time. So you've got to be able to run the football, and I think that he plays a big part in that if the Panthers want to have a shot at winning that game. So Chuba Hubbard is my shine this week.
Yeah, you absolutely can't pizza when you're supposed to French fry there. So
you're going to have a bad time.
You're going to have a bad time. My shine is a guy, I'm picking my shine right up off of Kevin's pine from last week, who he pined Deebo Samuel, who didn't have a good game, but I think we have a bounce back this week. He's going up against Seattle. Seattle has allowed the most points to the fantasy wide receiver opposing teams. And it has become apparent that he's the first read in this offense, 4 targets, and he's averaging 10 targets a game. So this is one of those where he's going to get the opportunity. He's going to get a lot of targets. He's got a great matchup on this one. So I fully see him just kind of exploding on this one and having a very, very good week. Alex, you said you had an honorable mention.
I do. I don't know if you guys know this, but Sunday night, there's kind of a big game. between an NFC East, an NFC South team and an AFC East team. So I think Tom Brady's going to go bananas back at Gillette. I know it's not exactly a stretch to say that Tom Brady's going to have a good game, especially what we've seen so far. But on the flip side, Tampa Bay's secondary is really, really banged up right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mac Jones kind of goes, tit for tat with Tom Brady. So I think if you're playing a quarterback in that game, it's going to be okay.
See, I like your thought process there, but I'm taking a different position in that game. I'm going to take Gronk in that one.
If he's back to 100%.
Correct. If he's back to 100% and he's playing all of that good stuff, I'm going Gronk there because we mentioned the Corey Davis, revenge game type of thing. Gronk is the type of personality that I think would eat in that situation and would relish the moment to just do a couple of, 2 or 3 Gronk spikes in the end zone every chance he gets. And I can imagine him just going, Tom, you got to hit me. You got to get me the ball.
I know that Bill doesn't want to get beat by those two guys specifically. So I have a feeling that there will be some scheming that is done. But I genuinely think that quarterback play is going to shine in that game. For one, because it's Tom Brady making his return to Gillette Stadium, and for two, Mac Jones, he had a rough go last week, but I mean, Tampa's secondary is really beaten up right now. So they're about to pull dudes off the street. I haven't heard yet if Richard Sherman got a phone call, but my goodness, they need some help on the back end. So Mac Jones could be a very solid play. And I wouldn't be surprised if he, kind of matches the performance that Tom Brady puts out.
Very cool. All righty. Well, guys, let's go ahead and head on over last segment of the night. So guys, if you have any more questions, comments, things like that, make sure you're tossing those out there so we can answer them for you before we wrap up and call it a night. But let's go ahead and head to the final performance. And that's the Thrive Fantasy Apps props for Thursday here. So Thrive Fantasy is a new way to play DFS out there. You can download the Thrive Fantasy app today on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. New users get a 100% deposit match instantly up to $250 when using the promo code GOBFF. And yes, that's the highest promo that they've ever allowed for the deposit match on that one. So you can sign up today. New users that deposit $10 or more will get one free ticket into the 15,000 guaranteed Thursday night contest there. New users that deposit $100 or more will get one free ticket to the 15,000 guaranteed Thursday night contest and 2 free $50,000 prize pool tickets for the weekend there as well. They have more than just NFL games. You can also play all sorts of other player props on other sports, and they even have some free rolls on various sports there as well. So right now, kind of coming into our props on this one, Alex is coming in at 2-1 on the season. I'm 2-1. Kevin's 1-2 on this one. And we've got some interesting matchups. This one's all going to take place for the Thursday night. Alex, who you got on your prop on this one?
I'll take Trevor Lawrence over 23.5 completions. And I think that probably 10 of those come in the fourth quarter in garbage time when he's just trying to mop up and Cincinnati's sitting back in a, prevent shell. And he's able to just get some completions down the field. So I'll take Trevor Lawrence over 23.5 completions.
Hey, dink and dunks count, man. They absolutely count.
Do.
So I'm going to take Joe Mixon on this one, right? I already said that I think that he's going to eat and he's going to have a big game. They gave a prop of over 0.5 for a touchdown, whether it's coming from the rushing or receiving on that one. So I'm going to smash the yes button on that one. I might be a little bit hosed if they run like a Statue of Liberty play or a flea flicker, the Philly special type of thing. And that's the way he gets his touchdown. But I'm pretty confident in that Joe Mixon gets into the end zone on this one.
Fair enough. I need to catch up here, guys. I'm falling behind already. I'm going to take Joe Burrow over 2.5 total passing touchdowns and interceptions. So he will have at least 3 touchdowns and interceptions combined. I think this Thursday night kind of speaks to that as a home game. They're going to want to show off Jamar Chase here. And if one of them goes to Joe Mixon, then both of us can eat Derek, and that'll be okay. So
there we go.
Joe Burrow is my play for this slate of Thrive Fantasy bets.
I like it. So guys, make sure, again, if you're looking for a new play to play DFS, download the Thrive Fantasy app. It's available on the Google Play Store, Apple App Store. And right now, using that promo code GOBFF, you get a 100% deposit match up to $250, as well as some of those additional plays on the Thursday night games and these weekend games, depending upon how much you deposit. Head over there, get that one done. You don't want to miss out on this one. Lots of fun. Guys, any final thoughts? I think that's going to take us down to the end of it, but any final thoughts on for the weekend ahead?
Continue to navigate the waters, right? Always try and improve. Always check the waiver wire, even when you feel like your roster's, in tip-top shape. Always just see what's out there, right? Check it. And you never know, you might find a little gem stashed away in there where you can grab a Alexander Madison because their owner didn't handcuff him like we tell you to do on the show, and you plug him in Sunday morning and he ends up putting up one hell of a performance for you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Pay attention. Just keep paying attention. I think a lot of times, we start to get into, after week 3, kind of the novelty of fantasy has started to wear off on people. And this is really where you can start to make your hay if you're very serious about it. And you can start collecting and just paying attention to the waiver wire. This is where the grind starts, because the first 3 weeks are done. This is where we grind.
Absolutely. And, for everybody out there that, there's probably a lot of teams that are 0-3 right now. And that's the biggest message that I'll give anybody there is don't give up on this one, because the amount of times that, people have started 0-3 and end up in the championship game is countless, right? Like I know that I've been there several times before where I started off 0-3 and ended up playing for the championship game at the end of that season. So there's still plenty of time left to go on this season. Make sure that you're just making the moves, you're working the waiver wire, you're doing the grind, all of the wonderful pointers that my co-host just gave you. Make sure that you're rocking and rolling those and bring home a championship for you. But guys, I do think that that's going to take us down to the end of this thing. Make sure that you're hitting us up on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Good Old Boys FF. Please do us a favor, hop onto the YouTube, click the subscribe button over there. We do this show live 3 times a week for you during the season on Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday mornings. And that's one of the best ways to support this independent podcast is through the YouTube channel. For Kevin and Alex, I'm Derek. Have a great one. Be safe.